Welcome back to a bit Gamey, and update for April. Starting off with a table, because my shelves of shame have taken over the original table that's going to be for gaming. So I've got this snazzy 3-foot square one, foldable, so I can tuck it away. And the second part of the update is the units that got finished for the 1 hour war games horse musket. Except it's the horse musket in the rules includes 2 light infantry battalions, and according to my reading, the light infantry didn't start to become such a kind of noticeable thing until a bit later, 7 Years' War maybe. So I'm doing it. I'm doing the following the sort of standard pattern of 4 line infantry battalions, 2 cavalry and 2 guns, but I'm changing for the 2 lights and have 1 guard and 1 grenadier, and that's the guard. So basically just 1 grenadier battalion short. On adding a general as well. 1 grenadier battalion short of a kind of 1 hour war games army. Yeah, I had some of this done already. I had 2 battalions and 2 half battalions. So it's got the 2 cavalry units, 2 guns, and 1 and 2 halves, I think, of the infantry. But pretty good. Just to reprise my review of the Warlord Plastics War of Spanish Succession. I'm pretty pleased all round with the figures. I'm looking at these small units. I've got the infantry are good, because I personally don't mind kind of static poses for kind of regimented infantry, like Romans or Assyrians or this sort of period. So the plastic warlord figures being all the same, the infantry being all the same, doesn't bother me. There's one issue with them, I'd say, is the command figures. They're perfectly fine, but they are a bit static. And I think the set itself works best with, these plastic figures work better with command figures, metal command figures. As you say, front rank would be, if I hadn't messed up my PayPal, that's what they'd all have been. So this is an example. You got the sort of infantry figures on the flanks, and that one's just got 1 a metal command figure, and this is the guard battalion here has got 3 of the metal ones. I mean, my painting's not that great, but the figures are significantly better. So I'd recommend that, using because there's 24 plastic figures in a box, so you could split them into 3 lots of 8 and get 3 lots of command bases. That's personally what I would have done if I hadn't messed up my PayPal. You see the thing with 1 hour war games is although you have 10 base units that you roll a dice for, it's actually you get 6 or 4 out of that 10. So you can see on the size of the table this big, it's 6 of those units is it's not going to be too bad. Oh yeah, so going back to my point about the review. So I think the infantry are fine to good. I'd actually say good, but other people might think fine. But better if they've got a smattering of metal command figures. which in this case for the size it's going to be front rank now. Although there's this other firm called E-War which I couldn't get, and Flags of War apparently doing some war of Spanish succession. Yeah, so anyway, infantry good, artillery pretty good. If you can see that, they've got a bunch of well, particularly the cannons are nice enough, but you also get bits of kind of little scenery. They're like the barrels and the bucket and that. That's pretty good. The only thing, any criticism of anything is with the artillery is you might get a bit bored with the poses, because there's the same poses, or more or less the same poses. You can fiddle about with hats and stuff. But they're pretty good. The figures come separate. Then we have bases, but you glue the bare feet to the bases, and you could put them on the main base as well. I'm keeping mine separate for casualties. Casualty figures. The only kind of bit I'd say a bit negative about the plastic figures is the cavalry. Oh yeah, and you get a general for each artillery sprue as well, which is handy. That's the British one, and that's the French one, the British one. Yeah, the only other addendum to the the review I did before of the cavalry is, I mean, this part isn't a problem for me. The fact that you've got 6 horses that are kind of running and 6 that are stationary, because I was doing that anyway, having them in groups of 6. But if you're wanting to come in 12s, to having 12, because there's 12 in a box. If you had 12 as a regiment, then that might be an issue. I don't know. The other issue is again, the figures don't come on their own bases. They come with bases, but they're not on them. And so and that's fine on the standing horses, because they stand up. They've got all 4 legs on the ground. Whereas the running ones have only got 2 legs on the ground. And if you're me, and you're too impatient, you end up with your horses being a bit wonky. I mean, it's not important, because you could just hold them in place until the glue's gone off. But I didn't. So my cavalry are wonky, but so that's a me problem really. But the other issue, and more important one, is they're a little bit static, too static. So I like that on the infantry. That kind of regimented sort of robotic type posing. I'm perfectly fine with that on infantry, on kind of line infantry like that. But with cavalry, it's not as good. You feel it should be a bit more lively, and it's more noticeable with dragoons, because you get a pose where you can have them with pistols, and I don't know, maybe that was a thing of just pistols, whereas I wanted them to be more dragoons, and so you're gluing bits of carbines or whatever onto the figures. That's okay, but I say that they look too static. But they're very cheap, so you take your choice. I will probably in the future. I'll probably get more metal cavalry. I decided I was going to get more plastic infantry, because when I bought the boxes for the infantry, I got 1 box of the Sun King to see if some of the figures were different, and they're not. But you got these flags. I'm too tempted. I want to put these flags on. There are 5 battalions of flags there, so I'm going to get a whole bunch more. So I need 1 more lot for grenadiers, and 6 for the French, the kind of French ones. So they're coming. I'll get them eventually. Guns, I'm probably going to get. I might get metal. Oh, for the guns, I'll probably get metal ones for that as well. Just to because yeah, that's the only thing with the plastic guns. They say they're perfectly fine, but I think the more you do, the more you're probably going to notice the similarity in the crews. So maybe a couple of metal guns with crews and split them around. What else is there? Yeah, so generally very happy with these Warlord plastic figures. Yeah, and all of these figures are all intended for the Allied side because of the different colours, the uniforms. I can start thinking about having little small battles, just to test out the rules and such. So that's on the cards. A general point with this, with the when you've got your 12 figure infantry battalions, is it increases the visibility of the flags. Sort of you get a little flurry of flags, because if you imagine there's 24 figures, they're just they'd be lost in the middle. Whereas that's I think it's one of the good things about doing this, because the reason for doing it was just because I didn't have a big enough table. But the bit that I like about it is it makes all the flags seem more noticeable, because they're just so you get this whole forest of flags, which I think is great. And that brings me to another point, which is when you're planning to do something like this of this era, this period, you want to be looking at the available flags on different companies like Flags of War or whatever, and picking units based on the flags, basically. Get whatever regiment that's got the best flags. I mean, again, if you're going to be strictly historical, you're probably better to pick a particular battle and get the exact regiments that are in each particular brigade or whatever. But the other way of doing it, if you're me, is just go for the nicest flags and get the regiments that have the nicest flags, and then just cram it all and see, try to get as many as possible crammed into the same space. Originally, I wasn't going to worry too much about which particular war these the battalions were in. I was just going to treat it all as 18th century, from whatever 1704 to 1790 or whatever. And so the opposition for this army was going to be Austrians from the 7 Years' War, mainly because I fancied painting white uniforms, because you've seen so many videos on it over the years, and so I started off getting these 7 Years' War ones, Austrians. But I found recently, after doing some reading, that and also this sheet, that the French were generally wearing white uniforms at this point, which is kind of a bit of a what's it. So I don't know what we're going to do about that. I do know I've got a whole bunch of sprues coming from there, from the Warlord sale, to do the French in white uniforms. So hence the general. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to keep doing the Crusaders, because I like the figures. But I'm probably going to do a 7 years war version of this as well. I'm definitely getting the French infantry sprues. I've got I don't know. I'm probably going to get metal cavalry for the French, and I don't know about guns. But anyway, the general gist is I'm going to get the white uniforms from the French. So I'm going to do this again in a slower pace for 7 Years' War. So one of the things I've sort of, from reading around, it's light infantry. It starts coming in more around the 7 Years' War, and with the Spanish succession, it's mostly more guards and grenadiers, and 7 Years' War is guards and grenadiers as well as the light infantry. So I'm going to end up doing both. That's okay. I don't mind that, because I'm enjoying the colours and the uniforms and the flags and that. So this is all because Napoleonics was always the first love sort of thing in this sort of general era. But for Napoleonics, I just can't let go of really chunky attack columns. 36 figures. That's too big for this little table. So one day I'll do the same thing for Napoleonics. But for now, this is enjoyable. I mean, the uniforms and flags, and the war of Spanish succession, and the same for 7 Years' War. It's all pretty good. I'm quite enjoying it, and just good fun. Oh, there's another thing. Sort of remember, I've been reading up on the history of these horse musket wars. I'm not an expert, but just read up bits and pieces. And one of the things you notice when they're discussing the battles, there's a very general pattern of we'll talk about like a battle where they had 120 battalions, 120 squadrons, and 120 guns. And it's not, none of that's exact, but it keeps a recurring theme where there's a sort of the ratios are roughly like that. Never actually like that, but averaged out, it's a bit like that. And if you think a squadron is really, that's three squadrons really. Your regiment is like, a regiment, say it's a regiment with 3 squadrons, so that means if it was 120 battalions and 120 squadrons, that would be, let's say 12. Say it's 12 each, and there'd be 12 of these, and 4 of these, because each regiment would be 3. 12, 4, and the cannon. Say it's 6 guns to a battery, then 120 cannon or 12 cannon would be 2 batteries. So it's a pretty good ratio. It's all average and rough and everything, but 6 of those, 2 of those, and 1 of those, one of the guns would be a fairly good ratio for. But there's a ratio that's that works. So that's the point being it's actually close to the 1 hour war game ratio. Part 3 is a little bit of I had one Svezda motorbike combo, and so I bought a couple more. So that's fairly minimal. And again, it's totally pointless. Well, it's not totally pointless, but so I'm supposed to be doing an infantry division, and infantry divisions, their recon was push bikes and cavalry. So why I'm doing motorbikes, I do not know. Well, I know eventually I want that as well, but so that's a small bit of progress on the World War II. Right, so that's the kind of mostly the progress, but the what's next? What's next is finishing off the French infantry from Pegasus. I did half of them, and I had a bit of an issue with the gluing when I was doing them, so I put off doing the rest. But I had a bit of a kind of sideways result with glue. But I'll probably talk about that in a separate video, because it might be useful. So that's them, and there's the other thing. As I say, I had this all these plans I had at the beginning for Napoleonics and Ancients, which I gave up because the size of the figures wouldn't work on on a small table like this. And so one of the things I was thinking about at the time was giving up on the big battle sort of games. Because say, given the size of the table, you can only have either have smaller figures or smaller units, and I didn't want to do smaller figures because painting's not so good at that scale for me. I mean, I can do it for 172 for World War II because they're not as intricate uniforms. But anyway, so I did the ancients and Napoleonics, and then got fed up because of the size of the units didn't work. And so I kind of fussed around for a bit, and this is the point. When I was faffing around about for that, I sort of decided, okay, give up on big war games, and go for skirmish games, which is when I bought loads of Frostgrave stuff, quite a lot of it in fact. But then I came around to my plan D or whatever it was, which is medieval, or high medieval, so before lanzknechts and pikes. So after all the pikes in the ancient period, and before the new set of pikes coming into the pike and shot. So that was going to be my new episode. It was going to be medieval and horse and musket like this. And so now I was thinking, well, I can kind of kill two birds with one stone by getting all this Frostgrave stuff that I got before, and turning it into a medieval game, kind of medieval war game sort of thing. So so basically, instead of Crusaders and whatever, like Norman Knights and Ostrogoth Knights or Byzantine or whatever, I can have Frostgrave guys versus Lizardmen. It's still going to be the same kind of Crusader type game, how I do it, but I'm just going to use it as an excuse to paint up all these figures I got already. So that's the result in a way, at least in terms of cash. So I've got some bases to come out to try and do them, doing a kind of 4x3, so it's actually be a bit like that. Oh. So that sort of width. So actually, narrower than the horse musket. So that's basically my plan. Going to have going to have units like this. This is totally random. What we call it? Saying they'd give them, say they'd have like a, in terms of scale, it'd be like a 1 for missile strength and 4 for melee strength or something like that. But anyway, that's going to tick my box for the medieval. I'm going to have it's going to basically based on Sicily, around that sort of period of the early Crusades, and have Normans versus Ostrogoths versus Byzantines versus the Muslims, Islamic, and there'll be they say there'll be lizardmen and gnolls instead of whatever. But so I'm quite happy with that because I got all these figures that all getting painted, and I'll probably do a proper Crusades at some point. But for now, it's just going to be fancy figures. It would be the same thing. It's just with weird figures. It'd be like pretending the horse and musket is Napoleonics. But so that's the plan. That's the next plan. So I'm kind of a bit bored of painting the horse and musket, and I've got to get some more done on the World War II and paint some of these Frostgrave figures. Anyway, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. So, toodle whip.